On some bumper back is silver.
Good morning and welcome. I would like to start the special meeting of the trustees for the purpose of a work session at 9:30 a.m. I'm going to do a quick roll call. Asherle? Here. Sweattick?
Yes.
Augustine here. And we will move right into department heads if that's okay with you guys. Does anyone have a preference as to who goes first?
Nope.
Mike, why don't you go first today?
Thanks, Chief. Honestly, I really don't have too much to bring up today. One update I have, one of our doors up at the shop is actually one of the cables is broke. Once ASAP evaluates it, I'll kind of let you know the price on that. Another thing that I have is, did you get a chance to read the email from Matt Martin that I forwarded you guys? I think he sent it out yesterday.
Yes.
So, and he was just kind of, it's just more of like, we're still in the rough draft part of it. Let's, now I'd like to kind of everybody, let's get this final draft over back to Matt. So, we can put in what the trustees want and, get this moving. And then Matt can pretty much say, okay, and then we can make the resolution pass.
So I have some language that I changed in it yesterday, and I don't know if the other trustees got a chance to look at it all. Did you guys look at the subdivision standards?
I looked at what you got back from the engineers. That's what you're speaking to? That's what you're speaking to, Mike, what you got back from the engineer's office on it?
That Matt sent us.
Yeah.
Melissa also changed in the Google Docs that I sent everybody. So that's where she's talking about where you can see the changes. When you go back into the Google Doc format,
I highlighted
any changes or that any trustee would make in the Google Doc format, then everybody can see the changes and who made them. So
I did not see that, and I don't have that saved.
You just click on it and go back into Google Docs.
So I highlighted the changes. Many of them were very minor grammar errors. One of the things that we had added to this conversation, sidewalks. And right now it says sidewalks are not required. If you look at Matt's email, he has a little further definition on that. But I was not aware that we had a sidewalk policy until the conversation occurred about the senior housing project at the last zoning commission meeting. So I thought it might be a good idea to attach that in this document and just right next to sidewalks are not required. I typed in Hinckley Township sidewalk policy is attached for consideration, just for folks to know that if they were to put in a sidewalk, we had a policy. So we can work on that language. Under cul-de-sacs, the current language reads center islands are required in permanent cul-de-sacs when a homeowners association accepts maintenance. And then I incorporated from the March 3rd, 2020 meeting minutes where we amended this document. Center islands within township road right-of-ways are forbidden in permanent cul-de-sacs unless permitted by motion of the trustees. So if you guys are in agreement to have them be forbidden unless a motion of the trustees exists to allow for the island in the cul-de-sac, I'd like to merge the first sentence and the second sentence so that we say,
Well, that's, when it's in the right-of-way, it's not actually in a cul-de-sac, correct? Isn't it? Right, you're talking about right-of-way at an entry point where they have islands.
No, we're talking about cul-de-sacs.
And it'd be like in the cul-de-sacs, like we were talking how some of them have an island in the center. And generally when we don't have those big concrete cul-de-sacs, we have a place to hide snow. And that's what we were talking about when we're cleaning those.
I understand that portion of it. What I'm saying is the second sentence that you have in there saying when it's in a township right-of-way, it's forbidden. Is there ever an instance when a cul-de-sac would have an island that would be in a township right-of-way?
There have been, specifically at the Valley Brook development. There was one and it was removed.
In a cul-de-sac?
Yes. When you came into the entrance, there was an island. And
that's what I'm saying. That's the entry point to the development. That's not a cul-de-sac.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'd like to merge both the old and the new.
That would be the only area really of concern in that.
Then maybe I would change that then to islands instead of referencing cul-de-sac. And then you can put those both under there if you want.
Yeah, and that's fine.
Okay. And then under lighting, I added the motion from the March 3rd, 2020 meeting. A street light will be installed and paid for by the developer, and the monthly cost will be paid by the township. Street lights will only be installed at the main entrance of the subdivision. Developer will install high efficiency LED directional lighting to minimize light pollution to surrounding property. Only by written agreement by the trustees may this regulation be overridden. So just language that I inserted from
previous.
the previous amendment, and then obviously just grammar errors that I again highlighted. I highlighted pending trustee approval under urban subdivisions because I feel like whatever our language is with regard to trustee approval, it should be the same throughout the entire resolution. So it's different
Consistent.
under urban subdivisions, it's different under cul-de-sacs, it's different under lighting. So maybe a way to merge it so that it's consistent.
All right, that's good. I'm fine.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously we need to incorporate what the county engineer sent over, Matt had sent
Yeah,
over.
that's-
Again, I can't.
Pretty much what Matt was saying is just pretty much kind of clean it up and,
Mhm.
you know, that way we can get a final draft over to him.
Mhm. And he added the road foundation language.
Yeah,
Was from
like I said, we just have to figure out how to clean all that language up to put it in, so it's
Yeah.
ready to go, pretty much. So it's just simplified and, and it covers all the bases, pretty much.
So I'll go in and unhighlight everything that I highlighted since we kind of are all in agreement, but maybe we should just look at the document collectively and add Matt's noted language.
Perfect.
Sound good? And I'll do that right now. Anything else on the subdivision language?
So I guess my question there, Mike, would be, he's saying as far as cement stabilization,
Yeah, those are your options for
Yeah.
that. So that's,
we would include all those options, or we would select the last one that he's.
honestly, I would include all of them. Because every topography is going to be different. And then it's on the trustees at that point, when they go to build it, you know, then you have the option what to pick from.
Which is what he's saying, specify URC.
Yeah,
Okay.
because he's saying that's how most townships are doing that too. So you could pick like the 7-inch with cement stabilization, the 8-inch with,
Or do we want to just make it an 8-inch? You know, their developers are putting the roads in. We need to make them as stable as possible right from the get-go, in my opinion.
Mike, what are the dowel joints?
just the joints in the concrete, pretty much like the hook bolts and everything.
In
else.
each slab, they bore a hole and then their dowels are inserted so it fits together.
Okay.
But even with like this 7-inch cement stabilization, because then if I don't remember exactly how deep they go with that, but that's pretty much, you know, being cement stabilized, that's cement underneath the 7-inch road also. So, I mean, it's quite a bit of reinforcement
14
just with that.
inches.
So,
So Jack, do you want to add Matt's language to this and then let's look at it again?
Yeah, he references sidewalks, saying sidewalks would be required. Do we,
in the urban builds.
Mhm.
but
So like-
in the current resolution, we say sidewalks are not required.
Correct.
Yes.
So I want to modify that to say they are.
Mhm.
For the urban-
Sidewalks are not required except for an urban build, something to that effect.
Except for
Yeah,
urban
Yeah, except for the
subdivisions.
urban.
Okay.
Because when you have the concrete curb and gutter,
And I can type that in right now.
you know, you want the sidewalks.
And then that's what I'm asking. Do you want to go through, Jack, and add the language that Matt recommended, and then we kind of look at it again, or do you want to do that now?
I think we can do that right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so sidewalks are not required unless for urban subdivisions, is what I just changed that language to. Do we want to keep the language that says Hinckley Township sidewalk policy is attached for consideration?
I would just cut and paste this exact language that he has here. Urban section includes sidewalks. Sidewalks would be required with urban subdivisions.
Do you want to do that since you have the document open?
Sure.
Because I think you and I are you on it? You're on it too right now. So when we're looking at the urban subdivision and the rural subdivision, are you happy with the language that's there based on what Matt gave us, or do you want to better define it based on what Matt
I
gave
would
us?
better define it.
Okay.
That's just what I would do.
Well, because it just says the 8-inch, right? With the, it doesn't do the 7, 8, and 9. Is that what you guys are talking about? Because I thought from that email, I thought we were choosing one or the other. I didn't know it was going to be.
And that was how Matt even had said that you can leave it as other townships do that. You know, it's your choice to pick
It's our-
the builder.
Right, it's
So-
our choice.
Or the builder will come and they can recommend something and then the trustees go, well, no, we would rather have this.
Are you copying the cement stabilization, or do you want me to do that while you're working on the sidewalks?
No, you can go ahead and do that and I'll finish this up.
Okay, so I'm going to just stick the cement stabilization underneath the road options. And before sidewalks.
That is weird to see somebody typing
I
while
know.
you're working on it.
Yeah, and actually, this is one of the things I wanted to discuss today, because I think that the Google Docs is a really great way to streamline all of our different documents that we have in the Hinckley Township, and was brought up by a previous person that worked in our staff. But it's a great way for us to work collectively on a document and share it. And when we have transitions of staff and trustees, we know where all the documents are. Mike took the time, and thank you, Mike, for doing this, to type all of this document. I know, it's all happening. They're all like,
We all have to stay anyway. It doesn't matter.
What the guys tell you about your door?
yeah.
And or something, I guess. I don't know.
It's it has to be replaced, just because you were talking about replacing the door locks anyway or something.
That door will not have a lock on it, so.
That one stays in all the time, right? They're gonna see if we have parts up there, so just to get it to latch again. But I know they looked at it, they might try some graphite just to spray in there. Look back and forth.
Yeah, okay. Whatever.
When they get some time.
Is what it is.
Okay, so I put in the cement stabilization, if you guys want to look at that and make sure that you're happy with how it reads, and that's just from the document that Matt had sent over. What else can I do to help you with this, Jack?
I think that will be it. The part about most townships, that goes away.
Yes, I was just looking at that.
So basically, all we really, the top two are already in there, Mike, correct? Well, the two 8-inch, we don't have the 7-inch, and then we need to speak to the 9-inch.
Yeah.
Or we can just say, like he said, require.
Pick one. Yeah, or offer two options.
But you want to have specifications for each of the one that are listed under the URC?
That's almost what he's saying, yeah, it has to be, so. That's all this was more like we were going to clean this language up.
Okay.
I didn't know we were doing it now. So.
All right. Why don't you flesh that part of it out? Make sure that the spec is right in there under there to include all three of those, and the rest of it I think looks good.
I just know he's going to probably say that like under the rule and urban, like we might have to clean that language up. So like I said, this is like a little bit more work in progress than what I thought it was. So but. it's getting there. We're making good progress.
Right, so we need to include the option to install the rural ditch enclosure for both.
Well, like if you put the concrete curb and gutter and you don't want the rural ditch enclosure, that was one of the things he was saying, like trying to clean that language up. So, because if we do decide to go concrete curb and gutter, you know, you want your inlet curb basins instead of having those, you know, the pipes in the people's yard.
Do we want to have more discussion on this now, or do you want to just incorporate that little bit?
I'm gonna have Mike put the specs in there to include all three of those as options, if you're okay with all three of those options.
I'm good with that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when we go to cul-de-sacs, how do we want to merge this language?
I would just call that islands and then say center islands are required in permanent cul-de-sacs, blah, blah, blah.
So I feel like center islands within township road right-of-ways are forbidden in permanent cul-de-sacs unless permitted by motion of the trustees should stay under cul-de-sacs, and then we should have another subheader islands.
Well, that's what I'm saying though, in a permanent cul-de-sac, a cul-de-sac island would never be in the township right of way.
Well, we made this motion because it was.
Well, it would be. I mean, anything, you know, your right of way is off the road, and then anything in the center.
But I mean, this was written for the entrance way,
Right.
which it doesn't actually address. That's not a cul-de-sac.
Martha said they're boulevards in that case.
Guys,
Yes.
there are several examples. Walden Reserve, because of the ingress egress, the amount of homes, a boulevard was allowed to be put in there. That is a center island within a boulevard. That's the difference in what you're talking about in a cul-de-sac island. Follow me? So they're two totally separate things. Within a right-of-way, you are not going to have an island unless it's an ingress egress boulevard. Make sense?
But the way the language reads is it has to be permitted by motion of the trustees, which we want to maintain.
Well, exactly. There's county subdivision standards that mandate the number of houses allowable within a proposed development and whether or not they can be built with only one access. Okay. So for example, you look at, look at the developments on Stony Hill. All right. All of those, they have a number of houses in there that are within the county subdivision standards. When Walden Reserve was built, it exceeded the allowable amount of homes, and it actually, according to county subdivision standard, needed another road, just like Skyland. Skyland has a road onto Stony Hill. Skyland has a road onto 303. The developers of Walden appealed to the trustees and to the county, and they got a variance. And to create the same amount of ingress and egress, a boulevard was allowed. Any more boulevards are really not supported by the county. They would prefer to see 2 ingress egress points. But that is the only instance you're going to see an island per se, quote unquote, within a right of way that's not part of a cul-de-sac.
Well, that's my only issue there, Martha. It reads that center islands within township road right-of-ways are forbidden in permanent cul-de-sacs unless permitted by motion of the trustees.
Yeah, I'm
Doesn't
not
speak-
even sure what that means, to be honest, unless they're just talking about a center island within a cul-de-sac.
Well, and this is the moment to change it. So if we have this language here that we're not happy with, like if you want to get rid of the permanent cul-de-sac from that language, this is the time when we're rewriting this resolution.
I mean, you already have the ability to review it and say yes or no. Do you have to complicate it, or can you look at it on a case-by-case basis as it's written? You are not going to find a peg that's going to fit in every single hole of a proposed development, but as long as you give the board the autonomy to look at each on a case-by-case basis, it provides you far more latitude than defining everything.
Let's say center islands other than in a cul-de-sac are prohibited unless permitted by motion of the trustees.
So would that be like a front entrance island, like in Meadow?
Right.
Right. And that's, I think that's,
That's a boulevard.
mhm.
That's what's considered a boulevard entrance.
I think it was just like the sentence was fine, except for that permanent cul-de-sacs.
And let's try this.
I'm
Are
getting
you
rid
doing
of it.
Okay.
Does that look better?
That definitely
Yes.
looks better.
Okay,
Yes.
so the sentence above it reads, center islands are required in permanent cul-de-sacs when a homeowners association accepts maintenance. Now, when we did this recently with Serenity Court, we made an exception allowed for an island in their cul-de-sacs, but we were specific to homeowners association taking responsibility and proper drainage. Do we want a lot for proper drainage language here?
Yeah, I think it would be a good idea. Doesn't hurt to have it in there.
Thoughts?
Yeah, you should have drainage in it.
Does that look okay to the two of you, or would you like to change it?
The only thing would it be appropriate to put in, proper drainage? I mean, who's going to sign off on that and say, okay, this is good with the proper drainage? Is it going to be Mike? Is it going to be the county? I mean, you want to,
That's going to be pending inspection.
Do we have any specifications for that?
No,
County
we don't.
does.
I mean, it could be just as much as drains running out to your inlet basins, so.
Yeah, it's very ambiguous there.
Mhm. Well, maybe once we get this done, you resend it to Matt.
No, and that's fine. That was the plan. It was
Yeah.
more just to bring it up, and then we can kind of clean it up and resend it to him again to see
Mhm.
what he says.
I think that's a good idea.
I'm going to move this up here actually to.
Perfect, that's fine. That looks good. Do you want to move on to lighting? I think fee designation is pretty standard. When I inputted the language from the March 3rd meeting minutes here, it almost restates what's already there. A street light will be installed and paid for by the developer, and the monthly cost will be paid for by the township. Street lights will only be installed at the main entrance of every subdivision. And the new language reads, a street light will be installed and paid for by the developer, and the monthly cost will be paid by the township. Street lights will only be installed at the main entrance of the subdivision.
I'll just get rid of the part in front of it.
Perfect.
There we go.
Anything else that you can see looking at the document?
I think Mike owns it now.
Okay, I'm happy with those changes.
Okay.
Looks good.
Very good. It's your document now, Mike. That's what he said.
Deliver to Matt.
Thank
I'll
you.
tag you guys in on what he says.
Perfect. I appreciate it. Okay, anything else for you, Mike?
That'll do it.
Very good. Who wants to go next?
No,
Whoa.
Fingers are pointing.
yeah, right. With the discussion of the levy, I'd like to maybe after Martha, just so I don't tie these guys' time up,
Okay.
if that would be okay for the board.
Mhm. That makes sense.
I just have two short items besides that, the levy stuff, so.
Okay, do you want to go through them now?
No, we can wait till let these guys go, let Martha go, and then if you don't
Okay.
mind, then we'll go.
Chief Seidner.
Sounds great. We had discussed refurbishing the lower level floors underneath the building as well as the Sally port. I had contacted 3 companies, one in Richfield, one in North Royalton, one in Granger Township. The company from North Royalton did not make their appointment and did not reschedule, so I have 2 estimates. The first is from Emerald Finishing in Granger Township. Their bid to completely do the lower level floors, grind them out, put in the new surface,
And this is specific to the garage.
the lower garage level and the side platform.
Okay.
So all of that would be all the same, as well as the Sally port upstairs. And their quote came in at $18,172. The second one was from Cutting Edge Flooring Systems in Richfield. They are the company that did the floors in the lower level after the flood. A couple of things that are different from their bid. They have identified that the rebar that's in the concrete floor now, some of that is starting to come through. So they have a system in place to grind out the concrete, fix that rebar, seal it so it doesn't deteriorate any further, replace the floor drains that are in the current floor, and also to, if you've been down in the garage, the yellow lines that mark the parking spots, they will include those into the flooring system, and as well as doing the Sally port. And their bid came in at $19,585. Given that we have some past history and are happy with the work they've done in the past, plus the additional work they're going to do, I believe makes, that $1,400 difference worth it. So at the next meeting, I will ask for approval to go ahead with them to do the floor project.
Do they have a warranty at all?
Yes, it's, I believe 20 years.
Oh, great.
So there is, and if anything, they pretty much say that it will never chip out. It would take an enormous amount of something to chip that floor. They will come back out and they repair it.
And just for the public's notice, this is from funds that were donated for the renovation, but we had approval from the anonymous donor to go ahead and use it for upgrades to the police station.
Correct. And I'm still waiting on BNT to get back with me on a quote on the lock system. They have,
Okay.
I'll follow up with them this week.
I know
So,
that they are very behind with just getting
I'm sure.
inventory of
I'm sure.
items.
so that's all I've got.
Very good. Do you guys have any questions for Chief Setner?
I'm actually surprised at the price. I thought it would be higher.
I was expecting.
That's a lot of work and that's a big space.
Mid-20s.
Yeah.
And I was very happy with the price. I will make copies of both of these estimates and send them over to you so you can review them before the next meeting.
Perfect.
But that's my recommendation is to go with them.
And the Emerald Finishing, with the $1,500 less, they were not talking about like that rebar, doing
No, not at
anything
all.
with that.
They never
so-
even identified the problem.
Okay.
So,
And I think that's
and the lower level is held up very well from what Cutting Edge had done in the past. So,
okay.
Very good. Thank you, Chief.
all right, thank you.
Martha, did you want to go ahead and go?
You know what, right now I'm in the middle of entering the withholding taxes. It's just want to do is 2 items and it
Sure.
should be done by then.
Sure.
Perfect.
Thank you, Martha. The first item is we have our 2012 Squad 37 up at Williams. We had the siren go out and the back door latch, basically has corroded with the weather getting in there, and the siren, the whole system underneath, under the hood where it all is, has got corroded. So we're going to have to look at replacing that at Williams. Both of the items, they wrote up on one quote, it's going to be $3,083.11. It's kind of the cost of living in Cleveland weather on it. That's a squad that in the next 5 years, we'll look at a replacement. About 4 to 5 years is when we're looking, the goal to replace that is. But I'll ask probably not to exceed $3,200 just to cover any potential overrun or shop cost or anything like that.
Do we normally have our vehicles like undercoated?
We have never done that. We have discussed it, but we have never done that because I've heard some pros and cons to it. So it's something that I'll look into, but it sounds like the door latch is it getting into the seams and cracks and private crevice. That's where that is. And the wiring, I don't think that would have, from what they've made it sound at Williams, it's going to corrode like that how it's built.
Okay.
But I'll look into more because there could be some value, but we'll weigh the pros and cons on that.
Okay.
The only other item is I said this, I think the end of last year, we're looking at trying to replace some of the light fixtures with LED bulbs in the bays to help cut the cost down. I've talked to Mike. We'll be able to use his forklift basket to go up into the bays. So I'm hoping it'll be a multi-year process because of how many lights fixtures there are in our station. So I'm going to get some quotes from Home Depot and lights.com to look and see what it is. And then one of our guys can potentially handle the wiring of the ballasts to convert them to LEDs, so we can start that process in our station to hopefully help reduce the overall operating costs through the years.
Perfect. That was something we were looking at.
Yep. Yeah, that would be my goal. And like I said, we have a lot. I have Lieutenant Landis counted them all up, and we have between the 48 and the 24 ones. Some of the ones I want in the bays right away, and then some of the ones I want inside the station of the 2-foot ones that stay on constantly because of night lights or just how it's wired up. We can get that covered right away.
Okay.
That's my 2 items as of right now.
Thank you.
A reminder, I will be leaving out of town Thursday and be gone through the weekend, but I'll have my phone and I'll check in the evenings because I don't get reception in the Lucas Oil Stadium and the convention center.
I'm excited for you.
And then I'll probably I'm only doing the stair climb now in my workout clothes. My kid's doing it in his turnout gear and an air pack from there, doing 110 flights at the Fire Department Instructional Conference. All monies go to the Fallen Firefighter Foundation out of Emmitsburg, Maryland. I did last year. We both did last year. My kid beat me. I'm proud to say he beat me. And we're going to do it again this year.
There's a chance since he's going to be in the turnout gear and you're not.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I may be able to beat him this year,
chance,
but we'll see. I'll be sore.
Good for you.
That's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Martha, did you want to go ahead now?
Yeah, thank you. If you recall at the last meeting, we discussed the required reporting for the American Rescue Plan funds. And in the meanwhile, at the end of last week, I attended a webinar on that reporting. And I had sent the trustees an email yesterday regarding the recommendation that boards that receive less than $10 million in funding, which includes us, adopt a standard allowance on that rather than item by item accounting. Now, I'm not asking for you guys to do any resolutions. That would not be required until you decided what you wanted to fund, and that can be at a later date. There's no urgency to that. But I would just like a consensus from the board that you would agree with my recommendation. I do need a consensus for the reporting.
I concur.
Yeah, is that what we needed by April 30th, Martha?
Well, yeah, it's a little loosened up based on my webinar attendance and what I learned from that. This has to do with the final rule that was adopted. Last year, you obviously couldn't do this, but I think what they're finding is the need due to the current COVID situation is not what it was last year. So they're allowing a much broader use of the funds, which was outlined in that Ohio Township Association piece. And you guys can find a lot more information on the OTA website. I would recommend probably, just discussing whether or not you'd like to use the resource that the trustees used a couple years ago, which was Baker Duplicar, I think, on final choices. But uses are quite broad, and that's why I asked the department heads to be present, is that you can use it for buildings, you can use it for roads, it's outlined basically in that piece I sent. But there are quite a lot of uses, and those are all within the realm of the standard allowance.
So just for the public's understanding, the ARP funds are a grant. It's a federal grant, and we received half of the funds last year, and we will receive the other half in May of this year. And we have approximately, Martha, what is it, like 890,000?
Roughly, yeah, with interest on it by the time the year's done,
Yep.
probably.
5 years to use the funds, is that correct?
2026, I thought. They have to be appropriated earlier than that, but it's a decent period of time.
So I'm not seeing the standard, the allowances that you wanted to adopt for. Is it the adopting the standard allowance
No.
and allocating funds?
What I'm asking the board to do is just agree that that is the process that we would like to implement when we determine what you guys want to fund.
Okay.
Standard, I'm not asking for a motion. I'm going to read you what this it says. Please note, there is no immediate rush to adopt a resolution selecting the standard allowance, as these resolutions are structured for when the townships are ready to move forward with a project. What I am asking that for this initial reporting period that's due on April 30th, I need to indicate whether the board agrees that they want to fund all purchases, future projects, through the standard allowance method.
That's fine. I just wanted to know the last part, the standard allowance method. And I agree with that. We did hire Baker, Dublicar, Beck, Wiley, and Matthews for the COVID relief funds last year. And that was a great resource for us because we were able to determine legally what we can and can't do with the funds. And they were helping us with writing the resolutions and all the things that went with that. So it's definitely a consideration for this grant as well. Martha, is that covered under the cost of the grant, the hiring of?
It may be. It may be. I'm not quite sure. It just depends what projects you want to fund. So, I mean, if you guys wanted to fund a building, you obviously could use the 890,000. If you wanted to do road projects, 890,000. Infrastructure, the price of the attorney fee is a small part of that. So to be honest, I would not even complicate the process by that. I think the whole bill for their services might have been under $400, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I just know that was a covered fee.
It was, but I think you understand what I'm saying is that this is a large chunk of money. So you don't want to start breaking it up into bits and pieces. You want to utilize it to its maximum impact.
Right.
So do the departments have anything to add to this conversation?
Not necessarily at this time. I'd like to see what those parameters are for the uses. And I'll certainly do some research on that,
Mhm.
at least from my perspective.
Same here.
Okay, I will send you all an email with some of the outlined uses and availabilities that you might be able to kind of brush up on that before we have further conversation.
Okay.
Trustees? Any further conversation?
No, I told Martha to go ahead.
Mhm.
Perfect. So you have
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha.
Thank you, Martha. Anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. You want me to have Mr. Wilson go before you?
It's up to you. I'll leave it up to the board's.
Do you have much, Mr. Wilson?
Actually, I just have one thing. I just want to remind the trustees that Thursday, April 5th, we have the final site plan review for the senior housing. So you're aware that that's coming up Thursday night.
Perfect. And the map amendment will also be discussed. I believe that we'll have the hearing for the map amendment at 6:30, Suzanne, is the hearing, and then 7 o'clock is the regular meeting.
May 5th.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
You are free to go if you
Thank
wish,
you.
and we'll just keep Chief Grossenbaugh.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson.
I will have the quarterly report on the meeting as well. Thank you guys for your time. So a month and a half ago, I presented some talking points for levy of looking to create a renewal and additional increase to create a combination department, meaning have full-time members / volunteer members. I presented it. I think there's a lot of big benefits with that, but I've also ran the numbers, talked with Monique a lot, talked with Jen, talked with my members a lot, and I'm going to present another option with the levy to kind of present. So the other option we can do is to do a increase in the levy, but where we go increase to the 3-man staffing, which in my mind is the most important part of all this, is to keep the public safe and the guy safe with having adequate staffing for runs. With that, we still have some downfalls we're going to have to increase the number of shifts our members work. Right now, they're required to work 4 12-hour shifts a month. We have to bump up to 5 12-hour shifts a month at a minimum. We're also and we may end up losing 1 or 2, 3 maybe, because that just may be too much for them. We will have to, regardless if we lose anybody or not, we're going to have to go bump our roster up to about 35 to 38 members to maintain enough members to cover the total of 186 12-hour shifts in there.
And that's part-time.
That's part-time, all part-time, yes. There is some conversation down in the State House that they're looking to increase. They had, about a month ago, they had a meeting in the State House talk about increasing the minimum hours or the allowed hours to work from 1560 to 1950 was what they were projecting. I don't know the time frame or outcome of that, which can drastically help us in this process as well. But if we look at additional part-time members, I look at other departments that are running all part-time departments, especially yes, they're out of the area, but when you do kind of look geographically around us, Seven Hills is one. They're doing 1,500 calls with 5 members. Now, obviously, we're nowhere near call volume and tax base and everything else, but they are paying a lot more, and they don't have high turnover. We did raises last year, November, and then January, local departments in the county jacked up the pricing as well. So there's going to have to be conversations. If we do a all part-time department, there is going to potentially have to be some increase in hourly rate to compensate to hopefully keep these guys. There's still plenty of jobs in the fire service out there right now. I don't think that we're always going to have a rotating department staff just because of full-time life changes with these young members as they grow families and everything else. but in hopes that if we compensate these guys, we have great equipment here, we have a great township, we have great building, that we can hopefully keep these guys on here for as long as possible. We do have a core group of members that have been here for a while, or new members that once he gets Gus there, who's our president of the association, gets off his leave, we'll be back at full operational. He lives within the community, but you still never know what the future holds for these young members that may have families move out, jobs and everything else. But the other thing that I would look at is if we did an all part-time department, 3 members on shift, is we would create, on the days there's no lieutenant on shift, we would create a OIC shift and give a slight bump in their pay to cover them being in charge to handle all the daily duties that would be expected on a 3-man shift, because training is going to greatly increase, because now we actually have 3 people to be able to take equipment out and not worry about getting stuck with equipment out when a call comes in.
What would that pay increase look like for those lieutenants?
The lieutenants, what I kind of looked at was a 6% pay increase overall, and anywhere from a 30 to 50 cent bump for the members that would be the OIC, the officer in charge. But it's not just going to be, hey, you're the senior guy, you're going to be in charge. I'm going to make some qualifications, do train, and say this is what to be. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
6% for the officer in charge?
No. 6% across the board for the members.
For everybody.
For everybody with it, yes. The officer in charge, when there is a firefighter that's on duty that meets the OIC requirement, they would get a bump during that shift time of a 30 or 40 cent increase on that, because they're expected to step up and be in charge and handle all the issues that may arise, projects that may come down that I may be assigning when they're on shift. But I believe that we can, this is another feasible option for the fire department to move ahead for the future, is to go with all part-time departments with 3-man staffing. I have to meet with Monique and Martha about some of the potential where, what we're going to have to look at an increase. But I think a renewal anywhere from right now, where is it here? The current levy brings in about $348,000. We would potentially look at a renewal of a 1.5 to 1.75, and that would be conversations to have with Martha, and then obviously to the board to take your thoughts and inputs on it to make sure.
Renewal?
Huh?
Renewal or replacement?
Well, that's conversation we need to talk about as well, is are we going to go with the renewal of the 1 millage and then a additional 0.5 to 0.75, or do we do a full replacement levy of?
That's what I'm saying. Don't
yeah.
say renewal of 1.5.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that. Yes. That's where we stand right now in this process. We have to be done by July. Everything's got to be filed with the auditor's office. We met with Martha 4 weeks ago, something like that. And we have the verbiage from the last one that we can tweak, send to Brian Richter so he can tweak it and then get it sent in there. So I'm looking for thoughts, questions, concerns, comments from the Board of Trustees.
When you came to us with the last PowerPoint presentation, was that for full-time members?
That was with 1 full-time member per shift, which creates a combination department, and it's still supplemented with 2 part-time employees.
And what were the numbers that you needed for that?
That would be, we would have to do a 2 millage, whether it's a renewal and additional or replacement of 2 millage. And that does set us up for minimum 10 years.
And that's the goal.
My end-all be-all goal is to have 1 full-time employee per shift, because it gives buy-in to the community. Right now, we have several members that hold this place heart and soul, but we still have nobody dedicated 100% to this to this department, to the township, where with having full-time members, it would become their home. It's their career, everything else. I talked with Monique as well, and we did a kind of similar to the police departments where they would start off at one rate, and then after 2 years, they bump up to another rate, and after 4 years, they would max out on their rate, and then it's based on the cost of living that the board.
And that's kind of what Brunswick Hills is.
Brunswick Hills does as well. Our police department kind of mirrored it, not pay wise, but at least the bump scale on that as well. We looked at the first year's starting firefighter was $49,920. After the completion of the second year, they would be bumped up to $54,912. And at the completion of the fourth year, they would be at $59,904 plus benefits. But I understand that there is some concern of the ongoing cost of benefits, health packages, and all that. And that's why I did present the other possible passage of going with part-time members. The goal of the fire department, the first goal, the next step goal is to have 3 members around the clock for the safety of the members, safety of the community. That is my most important thing right now, is to have that. And that would be with having dedicated, experienced leadership on each shift.
And a medic.
And a medic, yes, guaranteed medic.
3-man staffing. And I think for, the new trustees and the public, when we have 2-man staffing and there's a call and someone is experiencing something traumatic, one of those members is driving the ambulance. You've only got one person in the back.
They had that yesterday
actual patient.
Where nobody was able to come back in, and they had a very serious difficulty breathing patient. And
Does everybody run a 3-man crew?
I'm sorry?
Does everyone run a 3-man crew?
Most departments do, yes. Most departments do, yeah. And that is the trend going. The departments, Brunswick Hills, which is kind of what I modeled a lot of the 3-man staffing off of, is running 3-man. Granger still aren't even covering overnight calls because their call volumes are. Sharon Center just passed the levy. Their goal is to have 3-man staffing. They're struggling to even fill normal shifts. Seville is another one that I talked with Chief Winters, because he has 2 full-timers and 1 part-timer, and they run 3-man staffing as well. I believe Lafayette is 3-man staffing currently with part-time, and Earhart is looking for a May levy. They're going to 3-man staffing. The volunteer fire service is dying in America. Last week, the governor met with at the Fire Museum down in Ohio with a bunch of chiefs down there to create a volunteer investigation team to see what they can do to help bring in more firefighters. We're lucky where we're at with us bordering these communities, the population. We do have young members that we can pull from and hopefully keep the 3-man staffing, because we have one of the largest training facilities in Ohio. I've been told that Tri-C is actually larger than the state of Ohio. So we have a bunch of people out there. It's to try and bring them in is the key. The 2-man staffing, there's a lot of concern with members about they feel unsafe with it. The liability issue that if they get caught with something serious and it's just 2 and they can't call the resources, or they're delayed getting resources, it could fall back on them.
Right.
So my end goal right now with this levy is to hopefully to make 3-man staffing for the fire department to handle the increase, growth, and expansion of the township.
With the specifics that you're citing, I would like to see the cost analysis on that.
Okay.
Obviously, you have to get with Martha to.
Sure. Yes. Yep. I have a lot of stuff done, but our plan is to meet with Martha next to show what I've been working on and see. And that does cover training cost still. That still covers their vehicle replacement plan that I recreated. The one item that then happens is if we don't lose anybody and we're able to hire the five members to bring us up to 35 where we're covered with background checks, physicals, worker comp, the turnout gear, the uniforms and all that, those 5 people will cost additional about $28,000 that first year to buy them all the equipment to have so they can be functional as a firefighter on our department.
So the biggest challenge is getting a medic on each
Yes.
unit and having those people available.
Yes.
And with
24/7.
turnover, we have more medical.
Yeah, I think we may be losing another one to a full-time job as well with that and some health concerns with his daughter. I think that he may be dropping down here shortly too. We just interviewed in the last 2 weeks. We interviewed 2. One is a medic with Cleveland EMS. He's just finishing fire school. And then the other one we interviewed yesterday is currently enrolled in medic school. Been a firefighter for about a year now. Both came recommendations from members on our departments. Both interviewed very strongly. Both very eager to come on board. And they'll be, after everything gets done, we'll probably look in that second meeting in May to be looking to have approval to hire them and swear them in.
And medics are very important to our
Yes.
team.
Yep, they are.
There are situations when we don't have a medic on duty at all.
We try and we when members pick up shifts now, the lieutenants and the field training officers get the first dibs at everything to try and get that leadership and pretty much guarantee a medic on there. And then it's opened up on the 24th of each month and the 25th each month. Everybody's got to pick up their minimum shifts. But they're still not always guaranteed medics just because of shift coverage and all that. The problem that we start running into, especially in the summertime with our full-time members that are on other departments, is they, a lot of the departments, that's when their vacations are, and these guys may get mandated last minute at their full-time job, which means we could get a call off last minute, and we're scrambling then to try and find coverage right away. But Jack, we'll be meeting with Martha to show you numbers and all that.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Just, the only thing I just wanted to ask was, you were talking about the part-time coverage, but increasing to the 3-man coverage. What about the chief position?
We have talked about that. I still think my position should be looked at as a full-time position to manage and still plan for the future growth of the township and the fire department. And that gives the ability to assist the guys when there's a call-off or when more manpower is needed. Many times, when you start looking at fire departments, fire chiefs versus like police chiefs, many times the fire chiefs do go out more on calls because they're typically bigger calls, more labor intensive calls. And when you start looking at departments like this, you met Chief Straza last week. Seville, most of the chiefs in the county do go on calls to back up their crews. In Earhart the other day, their chief responded on a fire and was going in with the guys because they arrived with a 3-man crew. He was the 3rd man. They went right to work because fire doubles its size every minute. But my thing, even I said when I went through my interview process, is I'm always here for the community first before anything. And if I need to help the guys to handle a call or treat a patient, I will be going directly to that to help them. That's my number one concern here. I work 36 to 48 hours a week at my other job. When I'm back to that now since teaching's over with for the most part for the year. Like this weekend, I did a 36-hour shift. I was unavailable for the 36 hours. Now it was a weekend, but daytime, there's a lot of times I do take phone calls, emails there, and I have to take a step back there. My chief has asked me to take a step back, and that's fair enough.
Because you're doing Hinckley.
Yes, yeah.
Rightfully so. I feel it should be
Yeah,
full-time.
so-
It's because then this is your number one priority and focus.
How many hours of work are you doing outside of what you are supposed to be doing a week?
I was hired on to do about 25 hours. I've been averaging about 35 hours a week. I've cut back a little bit down to close to that 25 hours last month and a half just because of the teaching aspect. My dedication, my heart and soul is this community. July hits 25 years for me for this community. I love this community. And this is where I really hope that I spend the rest of my time and career here with this, growing this department out, what I've been kind of envisioning even before chief, as I've been part of the lieutenant staff since Chief Potts and even before Chief Potts of growing this and moving it forward.
Well, I think that you are an asset to our community. your leadership has made our department more progressive in many aspects. And I have always supported you being full-time. I completely support that to this day. And I appreciate the time and talent that you're adding, that you're not being compensated for, especially on those more difficult calls when our community needs you. And I think that when we're looking at these numbers and we're looking at this situation, I encourage both of the trustees to have communication, regular communication with you, learn how this fire department is functioning. And working with Chief Grossenbaugh over the last 2 years, we are in dire straits and we need to have a 10-year plan. If we're going to go to our community and ask for money, we need to ask for what will take care of this department's needs for the next 10 years. And that might be a bigger number. Ultimately, it's up to the citizens. But I fully support this fire department.
Thank you.
We have had many
Yeah,
conversations,
we've had many
about it. I'm getting the crash course.
Yes, you are.
in
Yes, you are.
Fire departments and medics. I agree. I am much more comfortable maintaining the volunteer department and going to 3-man coverage. I'm much more comfortable with that versus going to a full-time, having the 3 full-timers for the reasons that I explained to you last week.
Which are?
I am concerned about the unions and that could really increase what we are planning for salaries.
We talked about that, and there is a concern with it. The one concern is if they did unionize, which again, it's up to the employees. We have no say on that. Is most full-time department, all full-time departments in the state of Ohio are union minus a few. But most of those full-time, we have so many full-time members on our departments that we would potentially lose all those other full-time members because they can't be with a department that is a union.
Right.
I know that for a fact. We've talked about it because Gus's department is one, because Dino was the one that approached it, that was there, that he would have, if
You can't be
they can't be at 2 unions.
Mhm.
And I understand that. So that is a concern. That's always been a concern. And I cannot speak for the future of the department on that aspect. So I agree with that concern on that.
It's the unions that concern me, and also with the benefits. It's difficult to plan for what the benefits.
Well, I think we need to look at the fact that the state is looking at requiring benefits for part-time workers right now.
So those are my concerns
Sure.
that I discussed with you
Would I
already.
be able to interject real quick? It's not a very common thing, but also in the state of Ohio, there is such a thing, not as strong of, but part-time departments do still have the ability to form a union and bargain in that aspect. There's plenty of departments that don't have a union, but even full-time departments that don't have a union, it's ultimately up to the guys. So it's kind of how it is.
Yeah, we did
Yeah.
talk about that
Yes.
last week
Yeah.
also,
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
there
we-
are part-time unions, but it's still,
Yeah.
It's
And
a valid-
even if the problem with that still is speaking to full-time members, they obviously that would affect them still, and even a part-time union, because they can't be a part of that. So I can't speak for the department on that. I'm not going to give an opinion on it. It's up to them, but we would lose a lot of guys potentially if they unionize on that. And I agree with you. That is a big concern for a department like us, especially with struggling with a roster too. But we are very, very blessed that we've had in the last couple of years, we've lost a lot of guys. And I guess it's kudos to us. We're hiring great guys that are going out they're getting full-time departments. I know some young members that for years haven't, got full-time, but I know other departments that are struggling, that are paying a lot more than us, that they're struggling. So I think we're doing something right with the mentality of the guys we're hiring, the location of us, the equipment that we have and all that. So my goal is to keep all that going so that we help maintain the roster that we have. And hopefully we start getting guys that last 3, 5, 10, 15 years as part-time in our department.
Monique, you said you had concerns. Is there anything outside of the unions that you would be a concern for 3 full-time members?
I like the fact and what we talked about last week. I like that this gives us room to grow.
Yes.
If we start with 3-man coverage and it's still volunteer, it still gives us room to grow if that's where we need to go instead of just jumping right in and worrying about if these costs, that will affect so many things if they unionize, because it's going to take a lot of that money out of that budget. And then if we have to start cutting things to make those ends meet, what does that look like
and
for our community?
that's the one thing. I spoke to Chief Potts, which I think everybody knows. Jack, do you know Chief Potts? Spoke to him on some of this stuff as well. Chief Potts and Chief Strazo from Brunswick Hills have both been mentors over the last few years on this. And the one thing I don't want to ever lose or cut from is our vehicle replacement plan to make sure our equipment is new and working and all that, and training. I think you guys have seen that I'm very dedicated to training with the creation of the training building that's going to be happening and sending members to classes and focusing on that. And those two, Chief Potts said, typically struggle when you start moving forward with stuff. And I want to make sure that we don't. Now, I factored in when I created the combination department model, I did make sure that there was still that line in there to make sure that we always have a vehicle replacement plan. The funding is there each year rolling over and the training budget's there, but you still don't know what the future can hold.
The example that we used was, there are things you can't plan for also. Look at the bid that we just opened last month from the SCBA. And we know that, that was so much higher than was ever projected. And then we already know that going into it, we're going to be replacing vehicles.
We just met with another manufacturer yesterday with the committee planning for the tanker for next year. And there's already going to be a 7.5% increase in cost come July 1 for that. And right now with the shortage, they're almost a 24-month delivery time on vehicles if we have them built brand new. But
I feel this sets you up more for success to grow in a positive direction versus maybe biting off more than we can actually chew.
I agree with that to an extent. I do. I think the biggest thing I needed, as I said, was just the 3-man staffing and either part-time or with the combination department of the full-time. Either way, but the 3-man staffing, I think we're at the point where that has to be our next growth step in the fire department.
I think that has been your clear, consistent request from the beginning. I agree with that.
We talked one Friday and the whole weekend I reflected on all this stuff. And I'm like, going back to what I presented a month and a half ago or so was I stressed the 3-man staffing during that whole thing, examples and specific examples and possible ones. And I had to plan for worst case scenarios and all that. And the common denominator was the 3-man staffing over everything. Yep.
And that's been part of the plan for the last couple of years.
Yes. Jack, on the cost analysis, is there anything specific you want me to run or have or show you or anything?
I want to know what the bottom line is on each of the scenarios that, where that millage ends up. It's in the economic environment, it's going to be a tough road.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
that's my personal opinion. Adding to the burden of folks who are just making it or not making it.
And I completely understand that, but we also have an obligation to provide this care in the case of an emergency.
I'm not discounting that.
Do you have any lean towards full-time or part-time?
I think any motion to full-time, I think we owe it to the community to ask if that's what they want.
Which would be part of this levy, essentially. If we're saying this is what we would like to see, do you agree or don't agree? Vote yes or no.
I would prefer to see the part-time as well. I think that's a better package for this community. I really do.
Okay. Very good.
I appreciate it. I'll get you the numbers and we'll have more conversation. Does anybody have any other questions for me or statements or comments or anything?
Thank you for all you do.
I appreciate your guys' time on listening to this, and I will look forward to presenting more information and moving ahead with this.
I appreciate all the work you've done looking into
I am
this.
so
We've been
glad you're patient and you're,
crunching numbers
yep.
and looking at different scenarios and meeting with different chiefs. And explaining it to me probably 2 or 3 times.
She got to
sometimes.
meet Chief Strazo last
Yes.
week, so he has been a great help. So if that's all, I thank you guys for your time.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
The one thing I'm gonna say, that second meeting, I will not be here. I will be in Bowling Green for that fire class.
May 17th.
May 17th,
Okay.
yes. I will join virtually if that's okay, because I'll probably have the Assistant Chief Gerbasi or one of the other officers, depending on what shift it is, come because we're going to be swearing in hopefully those 2 new members.
Okay.
Thank you guys.
We have conversation on my docket to talk about, and I'm sure it's probably on one of the other trustees' dockets to talk about the May 3rd meeting next week.
Oh, yes.
Is also election day, and I know you wanted to
Recognize
Lydia, so we will let you know right away what our decision.
Yes, please do, because we did get the principal is available to come
Oh,
that
okay.
day. So please let me know the outcome so we can rearrange stuff.
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you guys very much.
Thanks, Jess.
Am I able to?
You are free to go,
Thank
sir.
you very much.
Thank you for being here, Gus. Suzanne, or do you have anything further to add?
No.
Okay. The floor is yours.
Okay, so for under administration, I'm going to be, as you know, working on the website to remove all of the old archived information. I got an email to you that I'm still waiting on response.
Oh, did I not respond to you? I'm sorry.
Just wanted to confirm that it's A-okay for me to begin removing.
Like we discussed.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
There are going to be some items that will be left, but will be left for discussion on what we really want to see on our website as far as information, but that is a discussion down the road when we meet with the vendor. Letters were sent to the Valley Brook residents for that road repair public meeting that's scheduled for May 4th. The public information meeting at 5:30 with the county engineer. Those letters went out on Friday, and I want to thank Lynn for her support in helping me with that mailing. I do have the drafted meeting agenda here and wanted to discuss the thoughts on the May 3rd meeting and if we're going to move forward with it or move it to the senior room or what the trustees want to do.
Well, and I had a conversation with you yesterday. You know, we tried to navigate a replacement meeting, if you will, in the senior room last November on election day. And we were successful because we had our proctor who had a virtual tiny, video camera that she brought in allowed for it. I don't think that we can have that meeting in the senior room because we would not be able to have the virtual option. That's my.
I just log in on Zoom and spin this one around.
In the
For the
senior
audience.
room?
Yeah, no?
It's your call. I have done it in there before. We've had to
What are the
manipulate
other
many a
options then?
virtual meeting. Many a virtual meeting have been, hey, Jack, look over here. You and I are going to share this screen, and then I'm going to have you.
Couldn't you use the cell phone with the tripod? Log in with the cell phone?
I don't think you can host it that way.
Do we want to postpone that meeting?
Typically, that was past practice, was to postpone or reschedule that meeting. We have two years ago, we had it in the old fire station bay because that's where we were having our
Right.
meetings. And then November last year, we did the senior room and, just because we were able to through Jen.
Postpone it till when? The next day or
The next meeting.
just the next meeting?
I am very fine with that. I'm going to be busy that day.
Do you
Do you have something going on?
Yeah, what's going on,
I
Jack?
don't know.
Do you need to pay bills or anything?
We have I believe it, and Martha can correct me because she's on, I think it's in the organizational meeting minutes that she can pay bills outside of a regular meeting. Martha, can you confirm that?
Think she stayed with us?
The other thing we could do is make a
No, we
motion.
can't even come in that morning. I was gonna say we can come in the morning, but this is,
Mm-mm.
Yeah, the whole room is, and actually they're in here the day before.
Yeah.
can you move those machines over a little bit?
You guys can make, I'm sorry, had too many screens open. You guys can make a motion to pay the bills at a special meeting or something. We can only pay bills in order to avoid late fees. That was the
Oh, is
motion.
that the motion? Okay.
Could we do it at the following work session?
On the 11th.
As long as you
or on the
add
10th?
it, well, you're going to need to pay the bills. I mean, I don't know. I guess it just depends how many bills they are. But I'll have to look and see if there's anything that is time sensitive.
I mean, the only other thing that we could potentially do is just have everybody come in virtually on the 3rd. So you're sitting at whatever location on your computer, Monique's at whatever location, house, your office here, or whatever, and we all come in virtually. They just wouldn't see this room.
Since you're already having a public information meeting on Wednesday, why don't you just tack something on to the next
I
day?
knew that was going to be said, and I cannot do Wednesday. I have a planning commission meeting that night. A county planning commission meeting. But you guys can have a meeting without me to pay the bills.
Yeah, I'll do that. You wanna do that?
Is there
Just to
a
pay the bills?
requirement that since we have started a virtual option, that one meeting would not be a virtual option and that it's an in-person meeting if you want to attend?
There's no statute. We can change the meeting announcement if we choose to. We just have to give 24-hour notice. But I think that we will have residents that will be upset that have become accustomed to this virtual option. And, it's very convenient. I don't know.
Yeah,
what
if we're
the other
just gonna meet to
trustees
pay the bills, why, let's move it to the 4th before that meeting, and you're okay, you said you're okay with not being there, right?
think.
Want to just do that?
My meeting's at 6:30. If you do it before the meeting, before the 5:30.
Yeah.
I may be able to Zoom in. I have leadership all day. I think till 5. I probably could Zoom in at like 5:15.
Could do that.
Okay.
5:15.
And then I'll go to the county planning meeting. It's a busy day.
We're going to call a special meeting for the purpose of a regular meeting to pay bills. Is that?
A special regular meeting?
A special meeting on the 4th for the purpose of paying bills at 5:15 p.m. And if I can't be there, I'll let you know.
You had
So
enough time
special meeting on the 4th, what?
Enough time for us to set everything up and that because the public meeting's at 5:30.
I'm sure it would be.
Okay.
You mean set up the Zoom?
I just don't know
Everything
if
will
people are gonna be,
Everything will be set up beforehand anyway, and then I just assume you would keep your Zoom on. You can put everybody in the meeting room
okay.
and then pop them back in for the informational meeting. If I assume is the informational meeting advertised as virtual as well?
It would be, yes.
Because I thought that was in the letter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So special meeting on May 4th at 5:15, you said?
Yes, for the purpose of paying bills.
Thank you. And then we're canceling the Tuesday, May 3rd meeting?
Yes, please.
Okay.
And we will have to let Chief Setner or Chief Grossobon know right away on that.
Yeah, I'll do the calendar and then email everybody and make a notation that May 3rd is canceled.
May 17th is going to be very busy because we will be announcing the Citizen of the Year.
For cemetery, I'll have a deed to sign for someone who purchased a lot at Maple Hill. And in zoning, we're still working on the fee schedule.
We are still working on the fee schedule. That's what you guys walked into today. We have had a couple meetings about it, and every time we think we're going to get right through to the end, we have something that stops us. So we have 4 more points to discuss, and then we will bring it to you, showing you what was there and what we have substituted it for. I think we're consolidating it very nicely and streamlining it. It's going to be great when it's done.
Good.
Anything else, Suzanne?
I think that's it. Lynn, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I just want to let you guys know that you should have received in your email the draft of the trustee special meeting minutes for the website presentations. If you have any additions or corrections, then, please let me know and I will make those and send them off.
And that was a website meeting. Thank you for doing that. I know that was a lengthy endeavor.
What I was going to ask you before the meeting this morning, do you have my packet on proximity marketing? I'd given it to you to review
I put
it.
in your thing on Friday when I got done with the minutes. I put it in your
Mailbox.
mailbox thing.
For proximity, I got ring the gong. I did not get proximity.
Proximity went in your box at least on Thursday.
Yeah, the notes from the meeting?
Yeah, the
Right.
packet that he gave us.
Yeah. I
Oh, the
borrowed
packet.
hers to do the
Oh,
thing. So
Okay.
both of them should have been in your box Thursday and Friday respectively.
I'll check my office again. Maybe I'm hallucinating.
I believe I put them in the right slot. I could have been like.
Okay. Thank you.
Lynn, do you have anything else to add to the conversation? Okay. Thank you for taking the minutes. Monique, floor is yours.
Well, getting into admin, question about the proximity. Have you reached out to him and
he redid the contract. I sent it to Brian last week. I haven't heard back from him.
Okay.
okay.
Sometimes it happens.
I did speak with Brian just yesterday, actually, about the concerns we had with the applicant for the proctor, and he sees no conflict. So we can discuss that next week, or we can discuss it now with what we want to do. Oh, wait, we're not meeting next week. We're not
Yeah,
going
we'll
to
have
have
to
it next
discuss
week.
it now, because that way you can figure out kind of which direction to go.
So the one applicant who applied, I emailed her, she emailed back. I emailed her again, no response. I emailed her again this morning, no response. That was the one from out of state. And then we had another one, which I wanted to discuss with you both and see your thoughts on this. He's a minor. He's a resident, but he's a minor.
I saw his resume though.
Yeah, I was
Very
actually very
impressive.
impressed
Yes.
for his age to see that. And I thought, maybe this is something that, we do want to do, like maybe he would do like zoning or zoning appeal, to give him a meeting so that he's getting some experience with it. And also the other one that we've had that application for a while, maybe kind of splitting it, not giving him, all of them, maybe not even splitting 50-50, but giving the other one, which we got to bring him in and talk with him.
He had issues as well as available.
The morning.
Yeah.
The morning. And he's a high school kid, so I don't think he's going to be around, all summer, every single night to just sit around and Zoom the meetings. But I think from what I got from his email and his resume is he wants to get started in the process. He's really interested in, following more of the government, how the government works. So I thought it would be something good to kind of incorporate him into maybe the zoning or the zoning
To
appeal.
add to his resume, you could add Hinckley Township.
Yeah, there you go.
I think that we should definitely, both applicants deserve a sit down. I'd like to meet both of them and then we can make a better decision based on that. Do an
Okay.
interview for both.
Do we want to just
And they
schedule
can
a
be
special
virtual.
meeting for an executive session?
Mm-hmm.
I can see if they're available. I mean, it's Tuesday right now. Would you guys be available on Friday this week if they're available, or Monday next week? Because I know Melissa really wants to have somebody else proctoring the meeting. So we already know the two that we want to talk to.
Yeah, thank you, Glenn.
I could do next Monday.
I cannot do Friday. I will not be in town Friday.
Okay.
What Monday?
I can do Monday. What time are you thinking?
8 to 5, is it?
Well, it's going to have to be afternoon because the other
No,
one is going to be in school,
I'm good.
right? So I can reach out to them
Yeah.
and
you do
see
that.
like
See what a
maybe
good time is.
3 or 3:30, like bring in the first one at 3 and maybe the second one
Let me know.
3:20.
Yeah, that works for me. However
Okay.
you want to do it.
Special meeting.
And if it has to go later at like a 4:30, 5 o'clock, that's fine
We'll have
too.
the Board of Elections set up here on Monday, so might not, it's in the afternoon.
Yeah, don't they come in between 1 and 4?
Yeah.
They sit at this
Point well
table
made.
though, don't they? I mean, they're going to be setting up over here, correct? In the,
Once it's established, I really don't think people should be in and out.
That's a good point, Suzanne. Let's see. We're going into May, folks.
I cannot believe actually that next week is May 2nd already.
I know.
I mean, do you want me to see if they're available Thursday or Friday? Melissa can't do Friday.
I can do Thursday though, or next Thursday, Friday. Before the zoning commission, as long as it's before the zoning commission meeting, I'm available. Which remember, we have a hearing at 6:30, so it would have to be.
Next Thursday?
Jack's got the busiest schedule of all of us, I think.
I think next Thursday, Jack's life is going to be a little simpler.
Cinco de Mayo.
It is Cinco de Mayo, and I'm going to be sitting here at a zoning commission meeting, Lynn.
I mean, one person's probably on right now if they're available, if they want to shoot me a text, letting me know a really good day.
Well, yeah, and I was going to say, why don't you just reach out to both of them, give them a couple dates. This Thursday, next Thursday, Friday.
Is this enough time if we do it this Thursday? Or
That's
we
up
would
to
need
them.
to know by, no, I mean to make special notice.
I would need
24 hours.
25 hours in advance of whatever time. you
Okay.
pick. So
Okay. I just thought it would be nice to have it established this week so that going into next week, you're done proctoring.
I still will be proctoring, I'm sure, for the sessions people can't make, but I appreciate that.
Okay.
So possibly the 28th of this week.
That's Saturday. What's when they do it?
28th,
No, 28th
is
is
Thursday.
Thursday.
Or Wednesday or Thursday next week, the 4th or 5th.
I can't do Wednesday. I can do Thursday, Friday.
You could do the 5th or the 6th. Jack, how do those days, the 28th, 5th, or 6th? They
The
all,
28th we're at?
like, yeah, 2 days from now.
Oh,
No, not May 28th.
let me go back to the future.
That is a Saturday.
So this Thursday.
This Thursday, if available.
Yeah.
Okay. I will reach out to both today.
Perfect. Thank you.
And I wanted to ask because I was uncertain with proximity. They had mentioned the YouTube. Were there plans, to like establish a YouTube, or would we do that?
He said, as I recall, he's like, we could set you up with a YouTube channel.
Okay.
So I think he would facilitate that.
Okay. I spoke with the prosecutor on that as well, and prosecutor is fine with us having our YouTube channel for Hinckley. Because I said we would store it on an external drive, the recordings we'd store on an external drive here. We could just upload them to YouTube. And I think it's possible, I don't know that much about it, but I think it's possible also, I didn't realize you could make comments on YouTube, so you can just turn the commenting off. So we don't have to worry about managing.
That's something to definitely ask within the proctor role if they are comfortable adding videos to YouTube on our behalf, because it would be silly for one of our staff member to do it if the proctor already has access to our Zoom account.
Would they be able to access, it would have to be stored here on the
It's
external.
stored on Zoom. And then
It starts on Zoom.
It starts
Right.
on Zoom in a cloud, and then you can put
So
it
you
on
move it
YouTube
up.
from there, since they're already in the Zoom account. And then these guys have access just to save the meetings for the transcription purposes.
But I'm sure we'll get that whole process once.
Mhm.
But it just is something to mention when we're
Yeah.
doing the proctor interviews, excuse me. Because I would assume that that role would probably be handled by the proctor.
Mhm.
Be nice.
Mhm.
That's all I have for today.
Very good. Thank you. Jack?
I just have two quick ones. I met with Ra, and I sent you
Mhm.
both the comments that I've had with him.
Yeah.
It was a good meeting. We talked about, different things that he's looking forward to. They haven't been able to get on the fields because they've been so wet. And
Mhm.
he invited us all up to stop and
I saw that.
I was
didn't
gonna
schedule.
email him and say I'll be living there because first game starts tomorrow at Kovac.
Who did you meet with?
Mike Euler, the president of Ra. OYLERRAH.
RAH Recreational Association of Highland.
Suzanne will know.
Used to be Hinckley.
It did used to be Hinckley, the Recreation Association of Hinckley.
But he had a few tasks. There was a beat up, rotted picnic table. He asked, Mike's guys are going to take that down. He's wondering about us providing some funds, and he'll bring that up to purchase a couple new ones
Okay.
for the kids to use between the fields there. We also talked about the fence there. And
Why is that a problem?
I talked to Mike about that fence. And I said, why is it that we haven't priced out a chain link fence, which would be a lot cheaper than wood and wouldn't require the maintenance?
Right.
And
I agree. And I think it was brought up in a meeting last year that, like if you drive by the high school, businesses have their banners.
right.
So they can pay to, and it creates more of a privacy and maybe a way to get some funding in for that.
Well,
Well, we can't accept funding. It would be through RAW.
Okay.
We had a big long discussion about
This was a
What-
very long discussion about signage. Yeah, we've been discussing this for years.
Mhm.
The prosecutor has had a field day with us trying to determine who can and can't post signage and how that is facilitated through. Do you want to add anything to that conversation? It's a
Where is this
lengthy.
fence at?
It's at Kovac Field in Hinckley.
It's in between the industrial.
KOVAK.
at any rate, his comments were, he understands that, money is an issue and everything. He said, but he's not even sure that we need fencing up there.
I think that we absolutely need fencing, and I would completely disagree with him against an industrial parkway with children running around. And that industrial park section there is literally a road. A child could get hit by a car in an instant. And then who's responsible? We are.
At any rate, I told him I would go up and take a look at it because he said, no matter what you put up there, the kids can still get around it and blah, blah, blah. So I said, okay, I'll go take a look at it. But he said, definitely what's there isn't doing anything. So if we remove that, at least until we get something else up. And I told them that, I'd bring that to you guys and talk about it. Whether we want to have the service guys go up and take the fencing that's up there down or wait and maybe see if we can afford to get them some fencing.
I actually think it's more of a liability how it is right now than taking it down. I mean, kids can go, not even, I was just up there yesterday, not even kids, adults could get through
Yeah.
the broken pieces and worry about somebody getting scratched on a rusty nail or something. I think it's more of a liability how it sits right now. But I also agree with Melissa that there needs to be a fence.
Something.
Because people fly down Opportunity Park. And I do live at the baseball fields all summer, and those kids are running around in the parking lot playing, not paying attention because some of those games are very long and sometimes boring. So the little kids don't want to sit around. They're running around the parking lot, and I agree. I agree to both of your points.
I think another thing to consider there that I've always talked about is some type of playground. And I know in conversation with Highland Schools very briefly, they had said that we could use that old playground if we wanted to pick it up at the old Hinckley Elementary and put it somewhere. Maybe that's worth a conversation. It's going to look at the playground equipment over there and saying, hey, what's viable? Maybe we can put it there at Kovac so kids have something to do while they're waiting for their brother or their sister to play.
I'd rather get the fence done first.
I know, but I'm just saying it's something to consider. I don't know what's going to happen with that property in the coming months, but it's, maybe reach out to Highland Schools and see if they're still.
Picnic tables underneath the building?
I think they may have gotten rid of those in the auction, but that's a good question.
That would be a good Eagle Scout project too, wouldn't it?
Picnic tables, yeah. Can you get them on that?
Who would we even reach out to for that?
Eagle Scouts generally come to us and ask what the township needs.
What time of year?
It varies. Yeah, it just depends on the student. Some of them are go-getters and they contact us earlier, and some of them,
Some are like, oh, dang, I need my,
I really need to tackle
17 and
that.
a half, and
Yeah.
Turning 18 next week.
I need an Eagle project I can finish in 3 days. It's not a big deal.
any Eagle Scouts out there, we're looking for some picnic tables. That's all I have for that.
I know that the Highland Foundation did picnic tables for the school during COVID. And one of the things they did was they purchased the tables and then the Boy Scouts came and put them together. So that's something too that you can consider, is just asking a local Boy Scout group if they'd be interested in putting together a couple picnic tables.
Okay. The only other thing I had was a website. We already talked about that. I sent that the paperwork to the prosecutor. So
Thank you.
Okay.
The non-union employee handbook, I spoke with Laura, who was doing Sharon Townships, and got some pricing. Because we're under 50 pages, she said the review is $200 and a full change is $500. So like every single page she would look at. She said that there is a $100 hour charge past a specific period of time, but she has never had to use that. She's been able to manipulate the document within the $500 change fee. And so she said if
so
we
200 plus 500 or $500?
yes, $200 to review it, $500 to make the changes, and pretty much unlimited changes. So she asked if there were specific things that we would like to integrate or look at. And I said that some of our things were comp time and sick time, but she would like us each to go through the document and determine if there are specific things we would like her to look at. If you're in agreement, for me to move forward with her and get a quote. And then we could go to her and say, hey, these are the items that we really want you to take a look at. Like, for instance, social media. I don't know what the new rules and regulations are for human resources for social media. And then she would really dig deeper into those items for us.
As opposed to just us making the changes.
Well, you've got
Yeah.
a lot of cooks in the kitchen. You've got past trustees' information that was integrated with trustee Jim Burns. And then you'd have my stuff, your stuff, your stuff. And then we have to make sure all of it's legal and that the language makes sure, like, for instance, we talked about comp time. So we talked about a potential cap. What happens after that cap wasn't integrated in? She is someone who regularly does resource books and would be able to handle all of that for us.
And who is this, Melissa? I'm sorry.
Her name is Laura Brocklehurst.
Common
It's
spelling.
Brocklehurst, and she came recommended from Sharon Township Trustees.
I think it would be worthwhile to have someone who may consider some things that we didn't and other documents that they've already prepared. And she's done a number of these, is that what you're saying?
This is what she does. This is her job.
When you say unlimited changes,
Up to the time limit,
okay.
correct?
What's the time limit?
Well, she said that there's $100 an hour for if we go past the change limit, but she's never used it before. So I imagine that we would be covered under the $700. And I think it's an investment because this has not been done. And I don't know the laws with regard to human resources. I don't know if either one of you do, but because she does, it's an investment in the handbook. I think the last time the handbook was done was 2008.
It was
So we're
Schulte,
due.
Garapik, and Catherwood.
Yeah.
That's who's on it. So
We're
a minute.
overdue.
Okay.
We can't just steal Sharon's.
Well, we already have our own document with 38 pages, so it's probably a good idea just to kind of update ours.
Okay.
So if you're okay with it, I'll move forward and have her, do you want a physical quote or do you want to move off of these numbers that she gave me?
I think a quote. I mean, we're not going to be making an actual decision on this for another 3 weeks, right?
Okay. We talked about the zoning fee structure. Thank you for that. I still haven't heard from BNT on a microphone for this room. So the Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee meeting is tonight at 6:30, and it would be really nice to have a microphone in here and a laser pointer. So they are just behind with, I'm writing laser pointer because that's something we had talked about briefly at the last Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee meeting. They're just inundated. They don't have the inventory. So with the Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee meeting tonight, you guys saw the agenda I put together. Arthur sent us all of the emails. I am going to work with staff here today to run copies of those emails. So every single committee member gets a packet with proposed survey questions for tonight. We talked about a typist that could potentially go in and type the questions as the committee does it. We talked about a timer. We talked about a proctor, and then we'll need name tags. What do you guys want to do with those items? Proctor, name tags, typist, timer.
I thought I saw name tags in the, did we get them?
I have to write them though,
Oh,
or whoever has
Okay.
to write them.
I mean, I can write the name tags.
Okay.
And I mean, although you have neater writing than I do. And the timer. Or I can proctor. Jack, you had mentioned proctoring, but I can proctor if you don't want to.
Proctor, name tags, typist, and timer. So I could sit and type the questions while I'm sitting here with the committee and share my screen, but I just need somebody to proctor it. So as people are coming in and out,
Okay,
they could be
we'll
added.
figure that out. Kitchen,
In the kitchen.
And then the timer.
right here, on the phone.
Okay. So I'm going to put you down for timer then.
So who's proctoring then?
Jack or Monique. Yeah, just set the timer so that the alarm goes off so they know. You don't have to keep cutting people off. It's
Okay, perfect.
90
Thank you for
seconds.
that. Any questions on the Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee meeting tonight?
My intent would be to be, with every question that they bring up, I would like to ask them, how does that reference the existing comprehensive plan? Question, 2 acre lot minimum. Where is that in the comprehensive plan? Is that something that needs to be addressed and updated? Because that's, in my mind, that's the whole purpose of this exercise, is to audit the existing plan, not to address zoning regulations. That's outside the scope of this, in my opinion. So.
Okay. I will have you ask that question if you feel it's not if it's more of a zoning question.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll time you.
Wait a minute. Jack has the timer.
Oh, it didn't go on.
So did you see the email that was asking us when we're going to discuss? Are we going to discuss the questions before we create them in the survey, or is the steering committee, they're doing it tonight and that's what's going in there? Or are we as a board discussing them?
I would think that the steering committee would be the ones to make that determination. And when we make the motion tonight for printing, we are saying we support their decision.
I think that's
That's the purpose of
purpose
them.
tonight, is to come up with a set of questions to present to the consultant.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well, it's not even to the consultant, it's to the citizens, because at that point, I'll make the motion for the survey questions to be
He's not going
printed.
to see them before we send them out. I thought that's just
No.
why we hired him.
It's one of the reasons why we hired him. We got his questions. I wish we would have gotten them sooner, but his questions are part of, I mean, it's very possible that they might use some of the questions that he provided. And the maps.
It's my opinion, I think it's a mistake to not include him in that process.
Well, we can send it off to him after the steering committee does it, but we just canceled our May 4th meeting or May 3rd meeting, and we need to get these out to the public. We want the public to have at least 3 to 4 weeks to work on these surveys to get them to us. And then OHM needs time. They wanted it approximately 2 weeks based on the last meeting. Arthur had stated approximately 2 weeks to collect all of the information and input it.
We are looking at having a special meeting now on April 28th, May 5th, or 6th that we could add that motion in, correct?
I just
After
don't
he
think it's up to
reviews
the
them.
trustees. I think it's up to the committee. That's my,
Right, but Jack's not saying it's up to the trustees. Jack's
But what are
saying
you
send
saying?
it,
No, ultimately, it's our
sending
decision.
it back to Arthur.
right. What's Arthur going to do? I don't agree with that question. He's going to tell you, you put your committee in place to do this.
They were to assist in the process. He was, is that not why he was hired? To provide us with a questionnaire to
I don't
submit?
have the contract in front of me. He provided us with this.
Right.
And I was under the impression that was one of the big reasons why they were hired, which is why he sent us so many drafts of the questions.
He
Is
didn't
that-
send us so many drafts of the questions. This is the only draft we got of his questions.
Okay. I was under the impression that was a big reason why OHM was hired. It was supposed to be a collaborative effort between the steering committee and OHM, which is why initially all those meetings were there were 3 meetings
That's what
with the
tonight
steering
is. It's a
committee.
collaborative effort between the questions OHM provided and what the steering committee wants to see.
Right, but initially there were only 3 meetings with OHM and the steering committee because I thought they were all working together.
They are. And he has said, these are my questions. I'm going to step away from the process. The committee can do what they want with the questions, and then we'll send them out. You guys were at the last meeting. He's stepping away.
I wasn't under that impression, but so he has drafted a series of questions. Now we're going to go listen to the folks tonight. We're going to say, change them. And we're going to make a decision whether to step away what the consultant is recommending, the professional we hired. Correct?
Yep. And if you look at this document from the professional we hired, I just don't know. My opinion, it may be different than yours. There are a lot of errors in it. I mean, simple errors, like there's 2 of the same number on some of these. I think there's excessive maps that aren't necessary. I think there are questions that are not necessary. I don't care how long you've lived in Hinckley Township. That's just my opinion. I don't care if you've lived here a day or 51 days or 51 years. You're a resident. That's why you got the letter. I don't know why I need to know what quadrant you live in. It's a numbered survey, and I have no right where you live. And that's just the first 2 questions. And that's just my opinion. But I think our committee could potentially get this down to 1 page by just excluding some of the maps and grids that may not be a priority to the audit itself. I think that we have a gentleman who was hired to do an audit. We talked openly in our public meeting about an audit. Our contract reads an audit, and then he came in with the intent of potentially doing an update. And one of the questions is, do you want to do an update? I mean, what we hired him to do may not be exactly what was provided. That's just my opinion. I think that the committee has a pretty good grasp, being here from the very get-go, listening to what the residents want. And if you look at the survey questions that some of the committee members have sent in, have very good indication of what the public wants to know. They're talking specifically about conservation developments, senior housing, lot size, very specific concerns in Hinckley Township right now. And like you said, Jack, some of these questions are more zoning regulations. They're not even comprehensive plan material. So it's my understanding that the committee will work with the questions presented by the planning company and design the survey tonight.
Well, we'll see what tonight brings.
I wish that Arthur, and I said this publicly before, I wish that Arthur would have given us the survey questions at the beginning of the last meeting, which is what I thought was going to happen, and they could work collectively on it together, but that was not the way that meeting was navigated. So I guess I need to know your thoughts going into this.
Well, I'm sure time's going to be the great decider tonight, whether or not we get through everything.
Which is why I had asked you at the last meeting about public participation.
Yeah. No, but I mean, I think you need to let the folks at least have a say.
And they have, Lord knows they have had a say. I don't disagree.
With that being said, at the end of the night, if we're satisfied with the product, I guess we could say to go ahead.
I mean, we're all going to be in attendance. And like I said, that was one of the reasons why I have this on the, and this being the survey printing and mailing on the agenda as part of the special meeting, is because if we agreed that we like the questions, we would then agree to the mailing.
Well, if we all agree, then.
If we all agree.
Yeah.
Right. But it's on as a purpose with the intent to have that conversation.
Okay.
All right, the driving abstracts, I just received back from each department head, and I think I shared with you guys the email asking for them to fill out the driving rules and regulations at the same time. That seems to be just a clean way of doing it. I have the newsletter I drafted yesterday and sent it to you. If you have any changes that you'd like to make or anything you'd like to add, please just email me and I will be happy to add it in. And that's all I have.
Very good.
Lynn?
I have one more thing to add to that, and I'm sorry.
You're fine.
The Asian training people, they reached out to me yesterday and they said that I needed to call them back immediately.
Okay.
I did try and call them back. They were not in.
Okay.
So he's going to follow up with me as soon as we get done with this meeting. And then I will let you know what because it sounded important.
Okay. Because one of the things that I had Lynn do was reach out to Angel Printing. One of their quote is dated 3/17/22, and since it's past 30 days, I wanted to make sure it was still viable. So maybe
I'm
that's
guessing not.
the variable.
Yeah, we're going to find out. I will let you guys know.
Thank you very much, Lynn. All right. If there's nothing else, I'd like to make a motion to close at 11:23 a.m.
Second.
Seconded by Sweattick. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Very good.